Well, moving on. Now, yesterday in Quality Digest Daily, we ran a review of a new book published by McGraw-Hill Professional titled The Lean CEO, Leading the Way to World-Class Excellence. You can see it there. I have it. Look at that right here in my...
right here in your hand.
Wow, look at that. Wow, it's cool. Yes, this is the book right here. The Lean CEO is written by journalist, researcher, and consultant Jacob Stoller. I read the book, really good read. I recommend it very highly. The Lean CEO provides an excellent, and as I said, highly readable overview of the origins of lean and practical case studies from several lead companies here in the United States. So, to find out more about the book, we're very pleased now to welcome author Jacob Stoller to the show via Skype. Hello, Jacob.
Hello, Mike.
How are you today?
I'm terrific, Mike. Great to be here.
Good. We're happy to have you here, Jacob. Well, as I said, I read your book, very impressed at the way you were able to squeeze a lot of a really relevant historical background on lean into your opening chapter. So the opening question is, was it hard to be concise when you're dealing with such a rich history of people and places and events that really built this overarching methodology that we now call lean?
Well, yes, it was hard, and it was painful, Mike. How did you know?
I sensed it.
I could sense your editor's eye here. Yes, it's, as you know, business readers tend to head for the exits pretty quickly, so we have to get to the point right away, and I certainly see that in your magazine. You're certainly very concise in a lot of your articles, so I'm sure you've been in the same place. But yeah, as a matter of fact, I cut tons of stuff that I would have liked to include, but I realized, I mean, here I am, I'm sort of the, like a local rock band, and there's the Rolling Stones waiting in the wings, in terms of the 28 CEOs. So what I did was actually, I took a sort of a lean approach in the end, when I was cutting things. I decided that I would only include things that the readers really needed to know to understand what the CEOs were saying in the case studies. So there were really two components to that. I mean, I think readers had to be able to understand the business problems with the sort of hierarchical management system that they had. And then they also had to understand how lean management was going to help.
Yeah, you mentioned that. I'm glad you touched on that. The 28 CEOs, very impressive group of CEOs. You could really understand their commitment. The case studies that are mentioned here that you bring up, they focus on organizations in a lot of different sectors. Of course, manufacturing is a key one, but healthcare, state government, and many others too. So, in your opinion, what are the commonalities that you discovered in these organizations at the beginnings of their lean journeys?
In a word, people. I think that if you look at the physical environments, of course, they're completely different. I mean, a hospital and a factory couldn't be more different. But if you look at the things that people do and the problems that you run into with groups of people working together, that's where you start to see a lot of commonality. For example, we know that in any kind of organization, you're going to see silos. You're going to see maybe people kind of beating around the bush and not solving problems. You're going to see managers who don't treat workers well and don't listen, et cetera, right? So those are very common problems. And, I think the beauty of lean and what it teaches us is that we can solve these problems in a very common way, regardless of the organization. I think there's a beautiful example in the book, and this is when Dr. John Toussaint was looking at outside of healthcare to find a better management system because of the problems they were having. And he went to visit Aaron's snowblowers, which is actually in nearby Wisconsin. And he has a beautiful description of how he saw these snowblowers on carts being processed, and he saw the care the workers were taking.
I think we may have lost Jacob there.
Did we lose Jacob?
Jacob? Well, we'll get Jacob.
We'll get him back here in just a second.
Yeah, but while we're waiting for that, I mean, where he was going with that is he was painting this picture of how lean is really a collaborative effort, not only within the organization but going outside the organization too. I mean, benchmarking isn't just a thing. With lean, I mean, you actually need to investigate what people are doing, whether they're in your industry or not. It's really interesting, and I think that in the case of healthcare, it was very much a a paradigm shift. I think we have Jacob back now.
Yep.
Jacob, are you there?
Yeah.
Hi, can you hear me?
Sorry about that.
We were just talking about the paradigm shift for healthcare. Where you were getting with, I think, here was this idea that it was a paradigm shift to say we're going to benchmark in manufacturing, get outside of healthcare and look at what manufacturers are doing to streamline their process.
Isn't that fascinating? I mean, you're looking at what people are doing, you know, and there's so much commonality there that it's just incredible.
You know, Jacob, you know, the title of your book, well, suggests that, you know, you talk about the role that top management must play in lean transformation. And one of the key pillars of lean management is a sense of humility and having respect for people. Top managers by nature, as we know, tend to be very self-confident and sometimes, egotistical. Yeah. So how can leaders basically move beyond themselves in embracing lean?
Well, you know, that's very interesting. My view of humility and this sort of thing really changed through interviewing these 28 CEOs, and I think probably coming into this, I would, and maybe a lot of people would agree with me, would have seen humility as a sort of a personality thing, like you have a humble person who doesn't brag about their accomplishments and all that kind of thing. But what I found is a kind of humility in these CEOs, which was really, I guess I would call it an intellectual humility. In other words, understanding that they don't have all the answers, and a willingness to go into a situation and not only expect that they might be wrong, but be willing to really admit that openly. So I think there's that's to me is very, very essential kind of humility you have to have as a lean CEO, because really what you're doing is replacing this whole idea that you have a hierarchical structure where the managers know all the answer. So that's a part of it. I think also there's certain humility of purpose here. I mean, if you have a CEO who really wants to maybe make some great numbers for a year or two and then move on to something else, you know, they're not going to be a lean CEO. I think a lean CEO has to be somebody that actually believes in something larger than themselves, you know, in terms of the company and the people that are involved.
Now, Jacob, we're getting very close to the end of the segment, but I want to ask you this question just before we let you go. And there's so many great case studies in this book. But is there any one of them that you would say really stood out and really best represented what the essence of a lean transformation is all about? And if so, why?
Yeah, you know, I think there are many ways there would be probably many ways to answer that question, depending on who the audience was. But I think for everybody, and this is people who maybe know nothing about lean, I really tend to tell the story about the Northwest Center. And this is really a wonderful story because it was an organization that started out really as, I guess, what you would call a charity for people with what we call disabilities. In other words, people who have cerebral palsy, Down syndrome, severe autism. And the organization was basically split up so that you had divisions that were making money, and then you had divisions that were providing work, and I'll call it make work for these people with disabilities. So what this new CEO did is he figured there's got to be a better way to do this. There's got to be some way. We have all this innovation in business and all these smart people. Can't we find a way to make the company provide profitable work for all these people with these so-called disabilities? Well, what they did is, you would think maybe they bring in a bunch of psychologists and stuff, but that's not what they did. They brought in a veteran from the steel industry called Mike Quinn, 30 years of experience, and a lean guy. And they basically applied lean to the letter to this situation. Now, you'll have to read the book to read the story, but the end result is in a few years, they multiplied revenue by, I think, by 500%. They turned all the divisions became profitable. And it's just a wonderful story. It's pure lean. And I think it's just a real sign of the power of managing people and the power of real, true respect for people.
Well, Jacob, I agree with you. I think that was a great case study, a very inspirational one. And this book is filled with them, by the way, folks. The Lean CEO, here it is right here. Make sure you check it out. I very highly recommend it. Jacob Stoller, thank you for joining us here today in Quality Digest Live, and we look forward to seeing you here in the pages, or the digital pages of Quality Digest Daily coming up here in the future. Thanks again for joining us.
That's great, Mike. Thanks so much for having me.
We'll talk to you soon.